Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for July's edition of the 2017 Educational Webinar Series. My name is Lori and I will be your moderator today. Today's meeting is all about how to keep food allergic and celiac college students safe and included by addressing key procedures and training methods in university dining halls. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and take you through a couple of housekeeping items. We will be muting you during today's webinar, so you won't have to worry about the background noise wherever you're watching from. On your screen, you'll also see a small chat box. We do encourage you to please use the chat box to type in any questions you have as we go through the presentation today. And at the end of the webinar, we will be able to get most of your questions answered. We should have a few minutes for questions, so please don't be shy. Type them in the chat box for us. If for any reason the audio goes out during today's webinar, if we have some technical difficulties, please just stay on the line and you will be placed into a lobby and be reconnected once we get that audio back up and running. If you happen to lose the connection on your end, just dial back in and you'll be placed right back into the call. And finally, we are recording the webinar today, but we will not be making the slides available as a PDF. The recording will be posted to the MenuTranspo YouTube channel for you to view again and share if you would like. But we do encourage you to take notes and ask good questions today to make sure you can take back all of this great information to your brand. If you'll bear with me at this time, I'd like to go ahead and read our disclaimer in its entirety. The content shown here is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. We are not lawyers and do not claim to be. You are encouraged to verify any and all parts of this presentation with your own brand's legal counsel. MenuTranspo will not be held responsible for fines or other penalties that arise from recommendations that were made following our best understanding of all published laws and supplemental guidance documents. This webinar contains material protected under international and federal copyright laws and treaties. Any unauthorized reprint or use of any kind of this material is prohibited. No part of this webinar may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopying, recording, or by any information storage and retrieval system without expressed written permission from MenuTranspo LLC or Beth Winthrop, the author and publisher. Before we dive into the content of today's webinar, we'd like to give you a little bit of information on MenuTranspo and Allergy for those of you who are not totally familiar with what we do. MenuTranspo is a mashup of the words menu, nutrition, information, which describes exactly what we do. We are a full-service nutrition consultant to the industry. We provide nutrition information through our proprietary software and database, as well as allergen identification, gluten-free menu reviews, specialty menu development, and menu labeling consulting. We also have the only ANSI-accredited food allergy training program in the nation through Allergy. With 10 courses available that teach food service professionals about food allergies, intolerances, and celiac disease, the Allergy suite of courses caters to various food service professionals and settings, including restaurant managers, hourly employees, chefs, university dining halls, university resident advisors, and primary and secondary school staff. There's various course delivery options available, including e-learning, classes taught by our certified master trainers, as well as via live webinar. Whatever your training needs and preferences are, here at Allergy, we are very sure that we can meet them. Please reach out to us if you are interested in setting up training for you or your staff. And lastly, a newer branch for us encompasses our gluten-free and food allergy kitchen audits. For more information about these audits, you can go to kitchenswithconfidence.com or send us an email. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without our incredible clients, and we have a handful of them on the call today, so thank you all for joining. This slide shows just a few of the incredible brands that we have the honor of working with here. And so with all the housekeeping tasks behind us, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker to you, the wonderful Beth Winthrop. And it just so happens to be her birthday today, so a very happy birthday to you, Beth, and thank you very much for spending part of your day with all of us here. Before I hand over the reins, I would like to read her bio and tell you a little bit more about her. Beth Winthrop received her Bachelor's of Science in Nutrition from Cornell University and completed a combined master's degree and dietetic internship at Tufts University and the Francis Stern Nutrition Center in Boston. After a long career as a clinical nutrition manager and internship director for Sodexo Healthcare, Beth is very happy to be working in campus services. Beth's goal is to help college students establish lifelong healthy eating habits. Beth lends a nutrition point of view to all aspects of her operations with a particular focus on food allergy safety. Beth works with campuses on the PHA Healthier Campus Initiative, coordinates the Campus Dietitians Network, and works directly with students, athletes, parents, coaches, student health services, and managers to meet special nutritional needs. Beth developed the MyZone Personal Pantry and Sodexo's Simple Servings, the allergen-safe resident dining option, which won Food Management's 2013 Best Wellness Concept. So again, thank you to Beth for being here today, and as soon as I can unmute her, she will have the floor. Give me 1 second here. Here we are. Sorry for the delay.
Hello there.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, it looks to me like I am unmuted. And Nicole Benner, are you able to hear me? I see in chat you're having trouble with audio. So you could just let us know in the chat box, because presumably you're muted. And Christoph, thank you very much for the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. So I hope you noticed my beautiful bridge slide in the beginning of the slides. And that has two reasons. One is just to show off about Newport, Rhode Island, which is where I'm fortunate enough to live. That is the Newport Bridge. And the second thing is because I think all of us in university dining are a bridge. And this is something that I talk to parents about all the time. So university is a bridge in general, from living at home with your parents to being a free living adult who presumably never moves in with their parents again, although that has not been my personal experience. But if you think about your own house and your own mother defending you like a mama bear and making sure that if you're allergic to peanuts, a peanut never comes into your house. And then if you think about just walking into a busy restaurant where you don't know a thing and don't know a person and, you know, do they care? Are they educated? You don't really know. So university dining is a bridge between those two states, not quite as hand-holding as mom, but definitely more caring, educated, and engaged in helping you to be safe with your food allergy than that cold, hard world. So here I am. I always like to know what people look like. There's me with my vegetables, and I am the Senior Registered Dietitian for Sodexo Universities in both the United States and Canada. This is my direct email address and phone number, and if you forget those, you can go onto the website of any Sodexo University dining service, and there will be a Meet the Dietitian link under the Health tab, and that is a link that sends me directly an email. So one thing we're very focused on in Sodexo, as I'm sure everyone in dining services is safety. So my personal safety pledge is to keep our food allergic and celiac students safe through following recipes, having accurate signs, preventing cross-contact. So that is just a very short version of what we're going to talk about today. So our agenda is we're not going to talk about the basics. This is a very august group of people on this line, extremely knowledgeable. Many of you are Sodexo campus dietitians. Many of you are people I've worked on previous with FAIR or with MenuTranspo. I know there are many master trainers, so I'm not going to bother telling you what the big 8 are and so forth. We'll talk a little bit about students and their families, about the different multiple ways that we can safely address their needs, some practical logistics around culinary and equipment, again, practicalities for catering, for labeling, for marketing and communications, just a little bit about working with other departments, and then how can we be recognized for our good efforts. So I'm assuming that you already know the big 8. You know food allergies are on the rise. You know what FAIR is. You know those purple things are villi, and they get very upset if you eat gluten, if you have celiac disease, what anaphylaxis is, and how EpiPens work and symptoms and so forth. So I'm not going to talk about those things. There are other things that we just aren't going to have time to cover, so we're not going to go very much into retail, into labeling certifications, into stock epi and the state-by-state issues, into the non-big 8 allergens, again, state-by-state legislation, technology, not too much with the other departments, with family dynamics, and with medical confidentiality issues. Those are all things that are important to think about, and I guess Betsy and Lori will just have to ask me back for a chapter 2 on that. So we all know that food allergy management is extremely important on our campuses. At its most basic level, it is life or death, and none of us want to have something terrible to a student happen to a student on our watch. Even though if we don't have something that is life or death for a student, being able to provide them safe food will help create how they feel about dining and how they feel about their entire college experience, how they look back on it for a lifetime. Our administrators, our bosses, our client really depends on us in dining to keep our students safe and to make sure that they're not going to have the top engineering student turn away from their institution because we can't provide them safe food. We all know about the Leslie settlement, which I do think made our administrators look at dining in a little bit different way, not that food allergies were entirely our problem, but they are a disability, and we need to think about them in that context. Trust, of course, is extremely important. The image of the university and liability issues, all those things will affect the university. So keeping those students safe has many, many implications. We know that college age is the most dangerous age for people with food allergies. The most fatalities, the biggest chance of dying of your food allergy does happen in the late teens and young adult years. So why is that? Well, part of it is that that's an age for risk-taking behaviors. So we may be, driving drunk and texting people at the same time and showing up at the frat parties, and definitely alcohol adds a whole different layer to the risk of having a food allergic reaction. The scariest statistic on this slide for me is that only 25% of college students make food preparers aware of their allergies. So for every 1 student we know of, 3 students aren't even telling us that we have that they have food allergies. And I know a lot of our efforts are spent in trying to encourage students to disclose. The other thing that I found interesting is that many times when college students wind up in the emergency room with an allergic reaction, they may not tell their parents about it, not even considering that their parents are going to get a bill. And sometimes that's because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, which is carrying their EpiPen. And statistically, they do have the lowest rate of carrying their self-injector. So why is accommodating food allergic students important? Well, it's a legal requirement, thanks to the Leslie settlement. It's the right thing to do. It's morally correct. It's the kind thing to do. It does definitely make a difference with recruiting and retention. You don't want to have somebody have an allergic reaction and decide that they're going to transfer to the university, right near their house so they can live at home, that sort of thing. Being able to have alumni engaged means engaged students to start with, and being able to be involved in the social aspects of dining can make that happen. We all know in dining that if we can keep somebody on a mandatory meal plan, that brings more money into dining and probably also into the university in general. Of course, trust and reputation, very, very important. And one thing I think we don't talk about enough is to have a staff person who knows that what they're doing at what might look like a somewhat menial job, a hash slinging type of job, but what they're doing is giving the biggest gift to a family of keeping their child safe from harm and also allowing them to have that residential college experience that many parents have told me that they never thought their kid would be able to have. They thought their kid would have to do like a distance program living at home because it was just so difficult to keep them safe. So again, huge gift for these families. And of course, if we do a good job, we get great publicity, both for the university and for dining services. Clark University is a small but quite cool university in Worcester, Mass. They got quite a lot of press when they put in simple servings in the local news, and people were really excited to hear about that. Okay, so you can tell me what's wrong with this picture in the text box. See if people are paying attention. Got two pictures here of things I think we, as allergy knowledgeable people, would see issues with, but maybe not everybody would. So I'll give you 2 seconds to text in what you think. Exactly, nuts in the cinnamon. And the thing that really drives me crazy about that is what if some neat-nick dietitian comes over and picks the nuts out of the cinnamon, and now we have nut-contaminated cinnamon with nothing to warn us about that. So, yeah, crazy. And then thank you, Maria. So the other thing, the croutons next to the salad. So if we just put the croutons on the other side of that salad bar next to the composed salads, not next to all the plain fresh vegetables that have no allergens whatsoever, that would be much, much better. So thank you for paying attention and having all those right answers. And I think then, one thing for us to remember is that not everybody has the same eye. So I think all of us would notice these things, but not everybody notices. So a large part of what we need to do in all our institutions is just raising awareness. So let's talk a little bit about our customers, the students. And these slides are courtesy of a meeting that some of you were at with me, where we worked on developing the FAIR college guidelines. So these were actual students, what they said. What do they want? They want to be normal. They don't really like being described as disabled, and they want to decide whether or not they're going to tell somebody about their food allergy. They want to be able to kiss people, go out on dates. They want to be able to come home at Thanksgiving and say, see, Mom, I told you you were just getting all worried about nothing, and I'm absolutely fine. And they want this to be not how they spend all their time and energy, because there's so many other new things in college that they're trying to get adjusted to, just like every other freshman. So what do they say is difficult for them? Their time management is very challenging. So I think all of us probably remember that, maybe being the smart kid in high school and then going to college and you're like, oh my God, I'm like not even in the top 50% anymore. Trying to catch up with all those things and sit down and talk one-on-one to us. Sometimes they may feel that they are not taken seriously, and I know all of us have spoken with chefs or managers who really don't necessarily understand the life and death implications of food allergies. Roommates can be a problem, or roommates can be wonderful, and helping to educate a roommate is definitely a challenge they have. Again, all of us can probably remember our freshman year feeling like you miss your high school friends, you miss your family. Well, take that, and then if your new friends at college decide they're all going to go out to a restaurant that's really not safe for you, that can make the social isolation really bad. They feel like we aren't necessarily trained for emergencies, and the biggest area where they are really concerned about us being ready is with cross-contact back of the house. So they're remembering that their parents weren't comfortable going to restaurants, and they're really not that comfortable with what we're doing in the back of the house. What they want us to know, living with food allergies is not fun. They don't ask for things to make our lives more difficult, and they're hungry right now. They need 3 meals today. So they don't have a whole ton of time for us to figure this out. They want to be safe. They want to have the college experience just like everything else. They don't want their food allergy to dictate their lives. They want some choices. They don't want to pick someone as a roommate just because they also have a peanut allergy, but maybe they're incompatible in every other way. So there are multiple safe approaches that work. If gluten-free is your major issue, or gluten-free, nut-free perhaps, you can have a station that does allow some other allergens like milk or eggs that can make life much more easy and varied. You can have zones or kitchens that have special items students can prepare for themselves. You can have limited access areas where you have swipe access or key access that everybody can't get into, minimizing the risk of cross-contact. You can do careful, short order special items. This is what most really small places do, is if they have students with food allergies, they just make them a special meal and have some kind of way that the student can call ahead of time and pre-order that. You can pre-order items to be picked up hot, ready to go, or you can pre-order chilled items and reheat them. So lots of different possible ways to do this. My personal favorite way to solve this problem is called simple servings. So I know there are a number of people on the phone who manage simple servings and other people that know about it. And basically simple servings is a station in resident dining that serves hot food, and it's ready to go, and it's open to everyone. So there's a server, which means that you can't have somebody come up with a plate of macaroni and cheese and throw a chicken breast on top and contaminate that tong. So you can only get a plate from Simple Servings from a server, and we do have a highly trained, consistent staff, which minimizes the chance of cross-contact and also gives that food allergic student that consistent, friendly face that they feel is looking out for them. Because it's ready to go, it maintains them socially intact. So if you and I just met in algebra, we want to go to lunch together, maybe we're going to turn out to be friends, we can just go. I don't have to worry about waiting for a special meal. Maybe you have to run. So it takes the social awkwardness out of it. Simple Servings does not allow 7 of the big 8 allergens. The one that we do allow is thin fish, but only as like a very recognizable piece of fish, not anchovy paste or Asian fish sauce or anything like that. And gluten is also not included. Very big emphasis on prevention of cross-contact, and we'll talk more about that. So Simple Servings did win the Best Wellness Concept from Food Management Magazine in 2013. I think this trophy is absolutely beautiful, and I really wish I got to keep it, but I didn't. And then also this year, I was extremely proud to receive the Best Food Allergy Innovation Award for Simple Servings from Allergy. So what's the menu like? Is this going to be food that just sits there and waits for an allergic person to come along? No, this is an attractive, popular station that lots of students are going to want to come to. It's great for athletes. It has a lot of lean proteins. It's great for students that are picky eaters that don't like all our fancy global recipes, or they don't like sauces or fried stuff and so forth. So there's a plain protein. Beef, pork, chicken, turkey, fish. There is no soy at Simple Servings, so the plant proteins are pretty much limited to beans because tofu, tempeh, veggie burgers, baked meat, that kind of stuff does not work. There's also a gluten-free starchy side dish, obviously also free of the other allergens. White potato, sweet potato, rice, corn, hominy, quinoa, lots of different choices there. Plus multiple vegetables that are prepared in a fairly plain way. They may be steamed or roasted, canola or olive oil, aromatics, fresh herbs, citrus juices, onion, garlic, and so forth. It's easy to that, plain menu that's kind of the meat, potato, vegetable sort of menu to add a salad bar or to add like a topped salad, interactive kind of station. An action station, a stir fry, those all work very well with Simple Servings. Breakfast does not work well, and dessert does not work well. So those are not included in the offer, and we sort of solve those problems different ways. And what I say to the chefs is, look, I know you guys can build a duck out of sugar and guar gum, and you can do all this crazy stuff with food. But for simple servings, I want the ingredients to be things that a person would normally pick up in the supermarket, very recognizable, not crazy ingredients, and that's kind of the zen of the offer. So here's one of the 2 stations at University of Vermont. So it doesn't have to be a huge station. This is actually on the larger side. And you can see that it's not in activity right now, but there is a chef out front cutting vegetables. He's got some equipment in the back. So best case scenario, the equipment is right at that station, food forward, so the student is actually able to see what is going on and how their food is being handled. The one thing wrong with the station that I did get fixed is you can see there's a plate rack right in the front. So you would never need to have a plate rack because students are served. The My Zone area, personal pantry area, it is not as restricted. There's just no gluten, peanuts, or tree nuts. And again, this is usually a restricted access area. Students can grab what they need. Maybe they're just grabbing a gluten-free hamburger roll, and then they go get the burger from the charbroiler and so forth. And this is the artwork for My Zone. My Zone, again, has a little different feeling from Simple Servings. It is designed to be reserved for people with allergies and other special diet needs. It's not for everybody. So it's not really about social inclusion. It's more about, safety and practicality. Gluten-free toasters are something a lot of us struggle with keeping non-contaminated, so having those in a reserved area can be very helpful. I usually advise that people get inexpensive gluten-free toasters so that if they do get contaminated, we just get rid of them and get another one. I actually love these little orange tags. If you go on the internet and just do gluten-free silicone tag, you'll be able to find them. They're very inexpensive and they're completely heat impervious, so they're really good for toasters and other things. For the back of the house area, assuming that your allergen safe station does not have all the equipment out front, I think there are some tricks to finding a good back of the house area and to how we think about it. So I try to find a less popular area. If there's a table that everybody's competing over all the time, that is not the one I want to have as my simple servings table because it's much more likely to have the integrity get breached. We try to set it off. So here you can see the little center drawer in the stainless steel tables painted purple, trying to make it look distinct. Maybe we paint the wall purple or tape it out or something like that. Purple cutting boards, I think there are some misconceptions around. Purple cutting boards basically replace the white ready-to-eat foods cutting board, but you still need to have your special cutting boards for produce and for meat. So you're still going to have red, green, and purple cutting boards as opposed to red, green, and white cutting boards. Also on your sanitation buckets, I think the purple ones are a very smart idea, but it also doesn't take away your food safety rules. So you still need a clean and a sanitized bucket, but you can just use a Sharpie and write clean and sanitize on the purple buckets rather than having the two buckets be different colors. So to me, these are safety tools: purple spray paint, purple duct tape. So we're really trying to mark up our areas and have it be very clear what is for simple servings or your allergen safe area. Again, for your equipment, for the oven, I would look for a less popular oven because I don't want people cheating. So where I look most of the time is underneath the range top. That is an oven that most people don't want to use. You have to bend down. It's close in there. So a lot of times that's an oven you can reserve for your allergen safe offer without too much competition. Your steamer is not as bad because most of the stuff that goes into a steamer is plain vegetables, plain rice. It's not usually too much allergen-rich food. You do need to keep pasta out of a steamer if you're going to use it for allergen safe. In terms of pots and pans, I do not like using pots and pans that have only gone through a 3-bay pot sink because I think we have food particles in that third bay a lot of the time. I want them to go through the pot sink and then through the dish machine at the end because the final rinse of the dish machine goes down the drain. Again, in terms of equipment, for simple servings menu, we do not offer deep fried foods. In order to do that safely, you would not only need a separate fryer, but you would need a separate filter. Also, that oil stays there for a while, so if there's any possibility that 10 o'clock Saturday night when we're out of food, someone's going to throw some chicken nuggets into that fryer and contaminate it, it really frightens me. So I don't like using deep fryers for anything allergen safe. Obviously, we wouldn't use a pasta cooker and throw gluten-free pasta in there. The flat top is really not a good thing to use because of cross-contact. Charbroilers have definite possibilities. Again, most of the stuff that goes onto a charbroiler would be meat or vegetables, so it's not usually that hard to keep a charbroiler allergen-free. You have to think about marinades. And if you're going to use like a front-of-the-house charbroiler for plain burgers that are going to go onto a gluten-free bun, you still need that purple spatula because you don't want to use a spatula that has touched any regular bread. Other smaller pieces of equipment to think about, colanders or china caps, all those little holes. I don't know about you, but my colander at home, I feel like I really have to scrub to make sure I don't have any pasta stuck in those little holes. So I would want to have a designated one of those. In terms of a food processor or blender, you don't necessarily have to have a full piece of equipment that's different, but you definitely need to have a special container and blade because food processors and blenders have lots and lots of little nooks and crannies that can be a problem for cross-contact. So also thinking about how we store our food, the storeroom is really important, and the receiver is a very key person in terms of food allergy safety. That's someone I always visit when I'm at our different campuses. So things like making sure that if there's a box of pancake mix with the corner broken off and never even comes into the storeroom, things about keeping all your nut products separate sometimes. All the nut products in the whole kitchen maybe could be kept in the bake shop because that's an area that's very difficult to make nut-free. Thinking about separating your gluten-containing and gluten-free starchy foods, and then clean, organized, and labeled is always good in the storeroom, and especially for allergy safety. So a lot of times when I'm talking to the receiver, I'll say, I understand why it is convenient to store these foods together because the packages are kind of the same shape and it fits on the shelf nicely. But let's separate them and put, these on one rack and these on another rack because here we have wheat berries and farro, gluten-containing, and then we have wild rice and we have rice noodles in those green packages, gluten-free. So this is not a good way to organize your shelves. You would want to have gluten-free and gluten-containing separate. Also, I think we definitely want to think particularly about nuts in terms of anything liquid that contains nuts like almond milk, maybe that walnut oil you used for a catering function. Anything that is liquid is much higher risk for cross-contamination. So in coolers, I like the almond milk to be in a container with a bottom so that it can't drip on things. So let's talk a little bit about some of the culinary challenges, specifically working with our chefs, and we do have some chefs on the line, so feel free to tell me I'm wrong or whatever in the chat box if you would like. One thing that is a great trend is really trying to think about food waste and leftover utilization, which many of us have been thinking about for a long time just from an economical perspective, but now I think we're looking at it more as a moral perspective too, which is important. However, leftover utilization poses an allergen risk. For instance, think about if you have half a pan left over of meatloaf and you're making chili today. Well, maybe it makes sense to the chef to crumble up that meatloaf, put it into the chili recipe. Maybe that makes sense, but you also might be adding soy, wheat, gluten, milk, eggs in that meatloaf that wouldn't have been added if you were just using a plain browned ground beef. So this is something people really need to think about, and also it definitely affects the accuracy of our signage. Another thing that I have noticed is that chefs are very excited about health claims and health attributes for specific foods and may sort of see a health halo around some foods. So looking at kamut, it's organic, it's non-GMO, it's high fiber, it's delicious, it's an ancient grain, it's so wonderful, but it also contains gluten. So we need to remember that just one attribute doesn't necessarily mean that something is allergy-free. Chefs commonly do not consider coconut to be a tree nut. I understand it is less likely to be allergenic, but the Food and Drug Administration characterizes it as a tree nut, so that's what we have to do. Another thing that I remind our chefs to do is to make sure that when you're looking at your menu, you're looking at the menu as seen by the consumer. So if you have the menu on your website, you want to make sure that you're seeing what the consumer is seeing, not just what's in your food management type of site. And then making sure that we have the menu information organized in such a way that it's going to be helpful for food allergic students. So we have the Bite app, which is wonderful, has the nutritionals, the allergens, and everything. But we need to make sure, as example for simple servings, that that is pulled out and always shown as a separate station for those who really need it. I did take the liberty of looking at the participants and going to some of your websites and getting some great examples from what you do as well. Net Nutrition, very, very interesting program. Again, able to sort by what I am able to have. So this is Oklahoma State. Nice example there. And I did want to also just talk a little bit about catering. So particularly for offsite catering, we might be in a really, really different venue than we would normally be in. So for offsite catering in particular, if there's something that has to be made as a special allergy request plate, you might want to think about making it in your normal kitchen, not the crowded kitchen in the historic home or wherever you're doing the catering. Mise en place is a great technique, both for the customer and for how beautiful it looks, but also to allow people to customize the ingredients they want to have in their food, which can be extremely helpful for allergens, especially if we have separate pans and so forth available. Thinking when we're presenting food, can we put the dips and so forth off to the side if we have crudité, so that we are not having people drip sauce all over vegetables that otherwise might be allergen safe. So in general, for menu planning for catering, if we can keep things as simple as possible and not put in sort of gratuitous allergens, not throw a little sprinkle of cheese on top of something that is otherwise just a vegetable dish, thinking about, can we put in some foods that will meet multiple needs? So can we put in something that is vegan and gluten-free and free of the big 8, but is also a beautiful, delicious, pretty to look at dish, such as this balsamic marinated grilled portobello mushrooms. Very pretty and very easy to adapt to a lot of dietary restrictions. So I've had a lot of conversations with people over the years about contains labeling and free from labeling and what is the smarter thing to do. So for Sodexo, we do have basically all the allergens, all of the big 8 allergens, plus gluten and MSG and a couple of other things on all of our signage, online and in-person signage. Some people like to use sort of a big icon for containing nuts, and I think there are some times that makes sense, and I think catering is one of those times where it can make sense, particularly if it's an unattended table, just to give people another heads up that this does contain nuts. Also, if you're serving something like a global dish, I saw a beautiful Indian dish that was very, very delicious, but it had ground cashews in the sauce, which is not something that you would necessarily think of. So really calling people's attention to that kind of thing can be helpful, but if you're going to commit to doing it, you have to do it for every single thing if that's your system. So it's definitely something that needs to be thought about, and that's a conversation I'm happy to have with people. Another thing to think about, again, from the perspective of that student or the family, is what happens if you go to your university website and you just put food allergy in the search box and hit search. Many universities, the thing that will first come up is the health form. So I know I said I wasn't going to talk very much about other departments, but this is one that I think you want to think about. So the question basically is, if somebody indicates that they have a food allergy on the student health form, is there any way to put a disclaimer to say this information will be shared with dining, or you need to call dining because we will not share this information, or something? Because otherwise, I feel like, you know, the parent maybe did that history, and maybe they're thinking that information is going to be shared with dining, and perhaps student health is thinking it's confidential health information. They're not planning on sharing it. So that's something that you really do need to kind of dig into and see what the plan is. It's nice to have brochures, posters, so you can maybe have rack cards in student health or disability services to say, this is what our system is, here's our contact information, put up pictures, phone numbers, emails of your general manager, your executive chef, your dietitian, whoever the contact person would be. I think that campus dietitians, registered dietitians, are extremely important. A number of you here are on the call. Thank you for that. And when I'm speaking with parents, which I do a great deal of the time, I find that parents most want to speak to a registered dietitian as their key point of contact. Not to say that there aren't general managers and executive chefs that don't do a beautiful job, because there are, but I do really feel like that campus dietitian role is growing and extremely important, and you know, I'd like to give some credit to the people on the line. I went to, again, some of your websites, and this I think is a very good idea. This is from Notre Dame, and it's about the student's responsibilities. So having the student initial off that they understand their responsibilities. And I have something similar to this, but probably not quite as good. But basically saying there are things that are your job, like having accurate signs and following your recipes, but there's stuff that's my job. Like, I have to tell people what's going on with me. I have to have my EpiPen. You know, I have to communicate. I have to tell you if I have a food allergy reaction. And I think having students go through that and sign off on that is a fantastic idea. Also, let's involve students in terms of allergy safety and how we do that. So who are the influential students? The athletes, the student government? Can we give our mascot a food allergy? I forget which university did that. It was in Florida. It had a chicken as a mascot. They did the cutest little YouTube video about, you know, the chicken had a food allergy and what is he going to do about it, and it was adorable. See if you can get student workers who have food allergies working at your Allergy Safe station. Students with allergies on your dining committee, satisfaction surveys that are targeted to those special stations. If you have secret shoppers, get people with special dietary needs as a secret shopper, and they can ask questions. You know, if I were to ask you for my pizza on a gluten-free crust, can you tell me how you would prepare that? And then let's look at the academic programs at our universities, and are there ways that we can do research projects with academics, with graduate students, to really look at the effect of what we do in dining and how it works out. And I think those things are publishable. So this is just showing you a couple of examples. At Troy University, we had the president of the student government really help us get the word out when we put in simple servings. He was very cute. And also allergen safe stations, if you work at a university that has a nutrition and dietetics program, or you have other dietetic interns that you're interested in having, an allergen safe station is a great rotation for them, because it's kind of a microcosm of everything we do in dining services. You have to think about procurement and preparation and service and equipment and all those things, but in a kind of smaller environment. So it does work really well for them, and they can be a huge help. Another thing to think about is training. Many of us really love to use the AllerTrain program, but I think it's also good to have some short trainings that you do. And one that I think is really good to do is a food allergy reaction drill. So what would happen? Let's walk through it. Get some of your frontline staff that are good at acting. Have one be the patient, one be the staff member that notices them. Pick a couple of firemen. Get an EpiPen trainer and really walk through the whole thing that would happen. And then let's think about how we can become recognized in the food allergy community. And all of us know that food allergy parents in particular are very, very involved with one another online. This and so ice cream is a different allergen and all that different stuff. So I think having AllerTrain certification training is very, very good, and we need to show that off. We can put a link on our website to the AllerTrain training map if we want to do that. AllergicLiving has a college database, and then FAIR has the college database. So again, the AllerTrain certification training, good for 5 years, anti-accredited, and so forth. To me, the reason that I wanted to go with AllerTrain in the very beginning when we kind of started our partnership is that I find it very confusing to people to have only food allergy training or only gluten-free training and not to talk to them together. So a lot of the mistakes I've seen have been people who said, oh, no, I have this gluten-free training, and then they're completely overlooking how dangerous milk can be as an allergen. So I really think that that is the most safe way to talk about it. So here's the map. You can see if you're on the map. I know many of you on the line are already master trainers, and that is great. And there's an opportunity if you're in Nevada, South Dakota, Nebraska, or Missouri. Or is that Mississippi? I think that's Mississippi. I was a math and science guy. Sorry about that. But we want to definitely be on the map and link that up. AllergicLiving has a nice college database. I think did a good job putting a balanced article in for parents. But that's something that they're going to update every year, I believe, so there's more opportunity there. And then the FAIR database, you have the option of either doing an on-site FAIR survey, which has sort of pros and cons, or you can do a self-survey. Both of those do have some training money for AllerTrain that comes along with them, which is fantastic. So Debbie Allen, are these slides available to you? I don't have a problem with sharing these slides, so I guess that's kind of up to AllerTrain, MenuTranspo, what they'd like to do for that. And just one more way, I think, to kind of show the flag and to become recognized as somebody who really cares about the food allergy community is show up at those fair walks, help to organize them, and really kind of be there with the parents and walk in their shoes. And if you didn't understand before, you will. So I am going to turn back over to Lori, except I have no idea how to hand you the ball, so hopefully you're still there.
I am still here. Thank you so much, Beth. That was absolutely fantastic. We'll get to some Q&A time here in just a moment. I would encourage you all to, if you've got any questions kind of lingering in your brain, please go ahead and type those in the chat box, and we will address those. We do have a little bit of time here. But before we get there, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to say there is lots of stuff we didn't talk about, so it's a big topic. Absolutely.
So we wanted to let you all know about our next webinar coming your way August 29th is another very important one entitled The Cans and Cannots of Food Labeling. In this webinar, our very own Director of Education, Claire Willis, will be talking about the creation and control of food marketing claims. And like all of our 2017 educational series webinars, it will be approved for one continuing education unit at level 2 through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. There will be a registration link in the post-meeting email you receive later this afternoon, so you can be sure to register for this next event as well. And finally, just to recap, here are some suggestions that we do have for you after today's call is complete. The first is to fill out the survey that will be hitting your email once we sign off. We do take your comments and criticisms to heart and want to know what we did well and what we should do better for the future, so please hit us with your honest feedback. And for those of you on today's call who are interested in receiving those continuing education credits from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the post-meeting email you receive will also contain a completed proof of attendance that you can simply download, fill out, and submit to the Academy to redeem those hours. And finally, to stay up with current news, legislation, and more, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter at MenuTranspo.com. With all the potential changes coming to the food industry and with the expected trend of more food allergy legislation passing around the country, this is going to be a great resource for you and your brand.
Great. I do see a question in the chat box, which is an excellent question. If establishing a space within your kitchen to prepare allergy meals and space is limited, what are the must-haves? So I do think you need to have a designated space. At bare minimum, you need to have a space which is designated for at least a chunk of time for your allergy-free meal preparation, but you really are much, much better off if you can do one that is available all the time if something comes up that you need to worry about. Some of the ways that I've seen people save space would be, again, look for those unpopular areas. So walk around. Is there a little piece of stainless steel counter somewhere that maybe is being used to store catering equipment that is not perhaps in the most convenient location, not in the most demand? Sometimes that can be really good because people aren't competing over it. Some people use little purple carts and plastic boxes to store all their smallwares and things that they need for those allergy-free meals so that they're not using a ton of storage space. Some of the things you really do need to have separate, I think definitely you need to have the cleaning bucket separate. You need to have your knives and cutting boards separate. Another option would be if back of the house space is at a premium, are there things that you can move to the front of the house? Can you use your actual steam tables in the morning and have a board that goes down on top of them that you can use to prep your vegetables on? Can you have a rice cooker actually out on the counter on your allergen-safe station and kind of move the prep out into more of that front of the house area? You don't need a ton of space. You don't need a special storeroom. In the storeroom, I think the basic philosophy needs to be, if it comes into the storeroom gluten-free and allergen-free like rice, it should stay that way. We shouldn't have like special non-contaminated rice and then all our other rice. We should just make an effort to have everything stay in the state that we received it in. But it doesn't have to be a ton of space. It just has to be space where everybody knows that it is reserved for that. So hopefully that helps the question. I don't know if there's any way to unmute for questions or if it's better to have people just do it in chat. And I would also throw out to the crowd, I see a lot of familiar names as participants. So you people do simple servings day in and day out. What did I forget? What are some things that are really practical tips maybe that you would give to some other people on the call about how it's worked out for you? Or, or anybody, what are some practical tips that you would have for other places?
I did receive one question a few days ago, Beth, for someone that wasn't quite sure they could make it. This person has a daughter who's 16 with life-threatening food allergies, so they're preparing for her to go to college. Her concern was just about the one-size-fits-all approach, with simple servings or with the way that universities are handling allergies. And, if her daughter only has one or two of the big 8 allergies, she's afraid that, it may be safer to cut them all out, but not best for her health.
That's an excellent, excellent question. And I think the beauty of simple servings or something similar is that no pre-preparation or planning is necessary. They can just show up and there's something that they can safely eat. And simple servings also can be made more restrictive if people want to say, well, there's no sesame allowed or things like that. That's okay too. Now, for the student who needs more variety and more flexibility and wants to eat those things, that's absolutely fine. And what we tell students is, anything in simple servings is going to be okay for you, assuming that that matches up to your allergen. Then look at other areas. So maybe on the salad bar, there's a great compound salad that doesn't have any of your allergens in it. It's perfect, but maybe you're allergic to milk and it's next to something with cheese in it on the salad bar. So you can ask for that item which doesn't have your allergens, which you can tell from our signage, but ask our staff to give you a portion of that from backup. Or maybe you're looking at the overall menu and you're like, oh my gosh, I could really go for a piece of baked haddock. I'd love to have that, but I see that that has breadcrumbs with some cheese. I'm allergic to milk. Ask the chef, can you make me a special piece of fish without that stuff? So by saying that we have simple servings, that is not saying that that is all we have to offer. That is saying that's where you can go if you don't want to or can't expend the time and effort to pre-plan your meal and ask for something a little bit different that, meets your needs better. That's your fallback.
Great.
All right. So, Lauren, how can you be sure that raw ingredients are not allergen contaminated when you receive them? Are there designated manufacturers? So that is an excellent question, and that's definitely something to think about. In the case of simple servings, the vast majority of ingredients that we use in simple servings are scratch sorts of ingredients. So they're vegetables, fruit, olive oil, garlic, onions, meat. So they are types of foods that are much less likely to be cross-contaminated because they really don't have any other ingredients in them. So for simple servings, we don't use a lot of things that you would look at the package and see a may contain label. For instance, we don't use convenient sauces and that kind of thing. So, most of the made in a factory that also uses blah, blah, blah type of stuff would not really apply. Also, do we use designated manufacturers? Yes, we do. So we have specified ingredients that go into our standardized recipes, which does not sound terribly glamorous, but definitely is extremely helpful with allergen safety. So I think that's kind of the way to get around that. And that's one of the reasons, remember I said that we don't really do desserts at simple servings. Desserts are much, much, much more complicated. Again, because of that, the may contain sort of labeling. Okay. So JJ Molina, who was the second person in Sodexo who did simple servings, for which I will always be extremely grateful. And this is a wonderful comment of creating personal connections between the dining guest and the chefs preparing the food. That is absolutely, absolutely the case. And when we have people with really complicated, 20 different allergies, that is extremely, extremely important for building trust in the relationship and the safety. And JJ certainly does a fantastic job at that. One other thing for the people that do have like 15 or 16 different allergies that we found very useful is to have what we would call a default meal for that student. So if they come in, they weren't expected, there's nothing that works for them that's being served in dining today. There's one meal that's their default meal. It's like, this is what you can have with food that we always have available easily and we can make you quickly and we know it's going to work for you. So again, if you're coming in Saturday night at 10 o'clock and the chef wasn't expecting you and you need something made for you, having that one default meal is a good safety margin. So, Megan, is it best practice to account for may contain or produced in a facility that contains when labeling allergens? That is a super, super difficult question. I would say probably yes, it is best practice. Definitely on simple servings, we would not want ingredients that say may contain or produced in a facility, but it doesn't really turn out to be that much of a problem with simple servings because, again, it's mostly scratch sorts of ingredients that don't have a label, which is helpful. But that's really a very, very difficult problem, not only for food service, but for consumers at home. So I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. I'm very dubious about baked goods in general for students that have nut allergies in particular or even milk allergies. So not an easy one. Any other questions? Lori, what did I forget?
I think you covered it. I think that was really fantastic, and we thank you again. Unless you have any final comments, I think we can wrap it up.
No, final comment is just thank you all for what you do, and if you haven't had a family member tell you what a huge difference you make to their family, you do. Your efforts do not go unappreciated.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you.